We're doing it. We're doing it. We're doing it. Wow.
I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Emily.
And this is a Trial by Podcast. All right, me and Emily are doing a double whammy today. We're recording 2 eps in the same day. Okay, we've already recorded one. We're on the second one. This is not a 2-parter. These are 2 separate episodes.
Shout out to editing Kelsey for killing it.
Dude, shout out to editing Kelsey, researching Kelsey, writing Kelsey, because Kelsey is tired.
All of the Kelseys.
Kelsey's tired.
Kelsey needs a vacation.
And mostly shout out to reading Kelsey, because I think she's going to have a hard time for the next hour trying to read this. But Kelsey's going to do her best.
We love Kelsey. And if you love Kelsey, make sure you listen to the podcast.
Please listen and tell all of your friends, because all of the researching, writing, reading, all of those Kelseys work very hard on this. So if you tell all your friends to listen to it, that really makes all the Kelseys happy.
And if you have friends in other states, even better. Tell them about Kelsey.
And if you know any Kelseys, if you know anyone named Kelsey, send this to them.
Specifically Kelsey, send that to them too. If you know a doppelganger, a Kelsey doppelganger, send it. You know a Kelsey doppelganger. You're friends with her on Facebook or on Instagram, aren't you?
Well, that's not a doppelganger. She doesn't look like me. She just has the same name.
A namelganger?
A namelganger.
Yeah.
Shout out to my namelganger, Kelsey.
I feel like my name is too
basic. She's from the UK.
basic.
I found her on Instagram because her Instagram handle, maybe I shouldn't blow up her Instagram. Her Instagram handle is Kelsey. And I was like, I wanted to make that my Instagram handle
hey,
years ago.
Are you actually using your Instagram handle or can I have it?
Yeah, no, I messaged her and I was like, dang girl, you stole my Instagram handle. And then we messaged back and forth about how we have the same name. And we've followed each other on Instagram for years. Oh, she just turned 30 and she just got engaged. So
damn.
Hey, happy belated birthday. I think it was about a year ago.
And engaged.
It was probably a year ago now. But happy 30th birthday and congratulations on your engagement to my namelganger, Kelsey.
And I really hope she's listening to this.
I hope you're listening. And
but also, yeah.
I'm going to send it to her on Instagram.
Like I said, if you have friends in different states, cool as fuck. If you have friends in different countries, even cooler as fuck. So send it to them.
Yeah, and that reminds me.
We're trying to see that pop up on our algorithm.
We have reached our 4th country officially this week.
Finland.
Yeah, this week. So we always record super far ahead of time because all of the Kelsey's team gets really stressed. Okay, we're not good with stress, so we like to stay ahead of time. Hence why we're recording 2 episodes today. But the episode that was just released this week was Matahari. And so Finland, I don't know what's up with Finland. They like Matahari. We got a listener from Finland, at least one. I don't know exactly how many because it only shows percentages.
And it's like
but we got US, UK, Israel, and Finland.
Woo woo!
Woo woo!
Add it to the roster.
Now, at the time of editing this, we have gone from 4 different countries to 32 different countries. So thank you guys so much. Anyway, we got to get into the story now because all of the Kelseys need a fat nap after this.
The Emily does too.
Yeah, the Emily definitely does for sure. Emily had a fun night last night. Hit the town. Back to it? Okay. Let's do it. I'm trying to hype myself. Whoa. So today, we are going to be talking about the self-proclaimed Watcher, an insanely creepy stalker who tormented Derek and Maria Broaddus and their 3 children for years after the family purchased their dream home in Westfield, New Jersey. So, if you ever seen, I think there's definitely a show on Netflix. I think it's just called The Watcher, right?
Yeah. Jennifer Coolidge is in it.
Yes. It's good. I personally, because I knew of this case for years before that show came out, I was personally disappointed. I felt it was too cheesy. It was too dramatic. It didn't
I didn't think it was as dramatic enough. I feel like there could have been more.
I didn't like the style choice that they did with it. It was very like weird and obscure, but like in a way that I felt didn't suit the story. Like
because it was just unbelievable. Like they didn't. I feel like it
they
was
definitely
not,
like changed some things and like and added some stuff that wasn't real and like whatever. So to me, the show was not as interesting as the real story is. It's like a really crazy story. So just to give you like a quick overview before we get into the story, this family purchases their dream home and they start getting these letters, very threatening letters they're threatening this family, they're threatening their children, all of these things, all because they bought this house. Like this person he signs all the letters, the watcher is obsessed with this house that the family moves into. And it's really, really creepy. It's a wild ride. So buckle up because you're going to say what the fuck to yourself a lot during this story. But yeah, you can check out the show. But I think once you listen to this first and then watch the show and let us know what you think of the show. And actually
is it a show?
It's a show. Yeah, there's episodes.
For some reason I thought it was a movie.
It's a limited series. There's like 6 episodes or something. Yeah. But actually now Spotify has added a feature. And again, we record way ahead of time. So you're like, if you've already noticed this and you're like, Kelsey, why are you saying this 2 months late? It's because I'm saying it in real time. But whatever. Spotify has added a feature where you can now comment on episodes, which I'm so fucking excited about.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
So, like, when we ask questions or, like, what do you guys think? What are your theories? Or, like, do you like when we do this or whatever? You can now answer us in the comments if you're listening on Spotify. So
nice comments only, though, please.
So listen to this episode, watch the show on Netflix, and then in the comments, if you can, I know that's a lot of work, but like come back and just like let us know what you thought of the Watcher show because I'm really curious. Or you can let us know on like Instagram or Facebook or whatever because you're already following us at A Trial by Podcast. I know it. So
I know it.
Again, let's get into it. So the story starts, ends, and takes place, and everything in between in Westfield, New Jersey. And Westfield is about 45 minutes from New York. And at the time that the story takes place, it was ranked the 99th richest city in America by Bloomberg, but only the 18th wealthiest city in New Jersey. So basically, there's a lot of rich cities in New Jersey. This is one of them, and it's one of, it's a very wealthy city in America. So the year that the Watcher struck, 2014, a website called Neighborhood Scout listed Westfield as the 30th safest town in the United States. Residents said that the biggest local issue at the time was, quote, unconstitutional policing, end quote. Now, what they're referring to when they talk about unconstitutional policing was really just overzealous parking enforcement. They were giving a lot of parking tickets. Now, Derek grew up.
Seemed like they were not very busy with the police enforcement in there. They didn't have a lot of crimes.
They're like, their biggest issue with the police is parking tickets.
But also, I get it, because nobody wants a parking ticket.
Yeah, that's what I don't miss about living with you is like I would always get parking tickets parking on the street there. I got like 3 and I only lived there for like, I don't know, 6 months or 7 months or something.
Never gotten one.
Well,
sorry.
I mean, you got the garage.
Besides the one that I got in Sheffield Lake and they came and knocked on my door on my birthday to ask me about it. I'm like, I paid that.
Oh,
do you remember that?
That's what you just told me that story. Mm-hmm. That's wild. Yeah, that would spook me if the police came to my door.
Oh, it did.
Now, Derek Broaddus grew up in a middle-class family in Maine before working his way up the ladder at an insurance company in Manhattan and becoming a vice president. Now, by 2014, Derek was doing very well for himself. And because of this, the couple and their 3 young children, who were 5, 8, and 10 years old at the time, were able to purchase their dream home at 657 Boulevard. And yes, the name of the street is simply Boulevard. It is not like Emily Boulevard. It is not Bill Boulevard. It is just Boulevard. And I find that confusing. But the address is literally just 657 Boulevard. I don't like it, but it's very old money. I'll let them have it. I don't like it, but I like it.
It didn't even need a street name. It said Boulevard is our street name.
I like it. They're like, we were, this is the one. This is the one.
This is the boulevard.
This is the, literally, that's how people call it. They call it the boulevard. You're spot on.
And then everyone else is named after the boulevard.
Yup. And the boulevard was a sought-after location in Westfield. It was a wide street lined with huge trees and some of the nicest homes in the town. And the house at 657 was a 6-bedroom, $1.4 million mansion. And it was just blocks from Maria's childhood home. Derek's wife is Maria. It was built in 1905, and many considered it to be the nicest home on the block. So the couple, they purchased the home and they decided that they wanted to renovate the house before moving in. So they stayed living in their old home while they were doing the renovations on the new home. However, a giant, scary, creepy wrench was thrown into their plans just 3 days after closing on the house. So 3 days after closing, Derek is at the new house alone working on painting some of the rooms. And it's at night, so the house is lit up inside. There's really no furniture or anything in there. It's dark outside.
Probably no drapes.
Probably really nothing. He is painting some of the rooms, and he decides, okay, while he's there, he should go out and check the mail. And since they hadn't really moved in yet, he didn't find much except for some bills and a peculiar white card-shaped envelope marked "The New Owner." Inside the envelope, Derek found a typed note that read, quote, "Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. How did you end up here? Did 657 Boulevard call to you with its force within? 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It's now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out. I see already that you have flooded 657 Boulevard with contractors so that you can destroy the house as it was supposed to be. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Bad move. You don't want to make 657 Boulevard unhappy. You have children. I have seen them. So far, I think there are 3 that I have counted. Are there more on the way? Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested? Better for me. Was your old house too small for the growing family? Or was it greed to bring me your children? Once I know their names, I will call to them and draw them to me. Who am I? There are hundreds and hundreds of cars that drive by 657 Boulevard each day. Maybe I am in one. Look at all the windows you can see from 657 Boulevard. Maybe I am in one. Look out any of the many windows in 657 Boulevard at all the people who stroll by each day. Maybe I am one. Welcome, my friends. Welcome. Let the party begin. Signed, The Watcher. I've never in my life read something so perfectly, except those couple of times I had to repeat myself.
You did a good job.
Thanks. What are your thoughts on this first letter?
Young blood just sent me to somewhere I don't want to be. I don't like it. I don't like how that made me feel.
I don't like it
It's
either.
weird. It just is creepy. I think I would immediately be like, can I have a 30-day refund policy and get
like
the fuck out?
Rule?
Yeah.
Like 5-day
I'd be
rule?
like, actually, you did what you needed to. It would just scare me the fuck out of here. So I'm going to pack my shit and go.
Would you move into that house with your children after that?
Absolutely not.
Me neither.
Absolutely not.
Me neither. And this is like such a hard thing. Like this is a $1.4 million house. Like this is their dream home and everything. And it's like perfect. And then this happens and
Too good to be true.
I don't know. So obviously Derek is freaked out and he's looking at the envelope. There's no return address on it. So he basically ran around the house just turning off all of the lights so no one could see inside the house. And then he calls the police. And eventually a Westfield police officer arrives. And when he reads the letter, his response was, quote, "What the fuck is this?" End quote. And I'm like, dude, same. That is my response to that letter. Besides asking Derek if he had any enemies, to which his answer was no, and advising Derek to move some construction equipment that was outside of the house just to avoid the letter writer like doing any damage to the house with it. There wasn't really much else that the officer could do. Like, he's like, okay, we have no idea who would have done this. We moved the construction equipment so they can't really damage the house. There's no address on it. Sorry, man, that's kind of all I got for you. So Derek just returned to the family's old home where the family was staying, and he just goes home and he tells Maria about the letter. Now, that very night, the couple wrote an email to the previous owners of the home, who were John and Andrea Woods, to find out what they knew about the Watcher, or why they had written, quote, "I asked the Woods to bring me young blood, and it looks like they listened," end quote. So, when he's saying the Woods in that letter, he's referring to the previous owners, and they're like, hey, dear Woodses, did someone ever ask you to bring young blood to the house, or what's up? Because maybe you should have let us know. So
I feel like that should have been disclosed in the information.
Well, yeah, and this becomes a big thing. So Andrea Woods replies the next morning explaining that a few days before the couple moved out of the house, they had indeed received a letter from the Watcher. Despite thinking that the letter was odd, the couple promptly discarded it after receiving it, so we don't really know exactly what it said, but it's reported that it made similar mention of the Watcher's family watching the house for generations. The Woods also noted in their email to the Broadduses that in their 23 years of living in that home, that was the first and only letter that they had ever received from the Watcher.
That's debatable. I feel like that's highly unlikely.
It's just weird. It's just weird.
Very.
Like, what is it about this new family that makes the Watcher so mad? So later that day, the Woodses joined Maria on a trip to the police station where they spoke to Detective Leonardo Lugo. Lugo told Maria not to tell anyone else about the letters, especially her new neighbors, who were all considered suspects at that point. The couple anxiously went about their lives for a few weeks after the first letter. Derek canceled a work trip to be home with his family, and they kept a very, very close eye on the kids anytime that they took the kids to the house, calling them back inside if they strayed a little bit too far into the yard. One day, Derek was giving a tour of the home and the renovations that they were doing to neighbors, and one woman made a comment that, quote, "It'll be nice to have some young blood in the neighborhood," end quote. So,
Red flag.
red flag. Now, only 2 weeks after the first letter, Maria found a second letter in the mailbox when she stopped by the house to look at some paint samples. She immediately called police before reading the letter, which read, quote, "Welcome again to your new home at 657 Boulevard. The workers have been busy, and I have been watching you unload carfuls of your personal belongings. The dumpster is a nice touch. Have they found what is in the walls yet? In time they will," end quote. In this letter, the Watcher had also addressed Derek and Maria directly, but he misspelled their names. He spelled it Mr. and Mrs. Broaddus, Braddus, but their name is spelled Broaddus. The letter then listed the names and the nicknames of all three of the Broaddus children, listing them in birth order. I've removed this part of the letter because obviously Derek and Maria didn't want this information about their children to be spread in the media and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's creepy as fuck.
So the letter then continued, quote, "I am pleased to know your names now and the name of the young blood you have brought to me. You certainly say their names often." Pause quote. It then mentions one child in particular, which again we won't name, and explains that the letter writer had seen this child painting on the porch one day. So the letter writer continues, quote, "Is she the artist in the family? 657 Boulevard is anxious for you to move in. It has been years and years since the young blood ruled the hallways of the house. Have you found all of the secrets it holds yet? Will the young blood play in the basement, or are they too afraid to go down there alone? I would be very afraid if I were them. It is far away from the rest of the house. If you were upstairs, you would never hear them scream. Will they sleep in the attic, or will you all sleep on the second floor? Who has the bedrooms facing the street? I'll know as soon as you move in. It will help me to know who is in each bedroom. Then I can plan better. All of the windows and doors in 657 Boulevard allow me to watch you and track you as you move through the house. Who am I? I am the watcher and have been in control of 657 Boulevard for the better part of 2 decades now. The Woods family turned it over to you. It was their time to move on and kindly sold it when I asked them to. I pass by many times a day. 657 Boulevard is my job, my life, my obsession. And now you are too, Broaddus family. Welcome to the product of your greed. Greed is what brought the past 3 families to 657 Boulevard, and now it has brought you to me. Have a happy moving in day. You know I'll be watching. End quote.
And that summarizes that episode of My Strange Addiction, which is a house, apparently.
What? Wait, what? Tell me.
No,
you're saying this. I thought you meant there was literally an episode of My Strange Addiction like
no,
this.
There
I'm like,
should
did
be,
we
though.
just solve the case?
There should be, though.
Yeah, that's like, now there's a lot of theories that we're going to get into about like who is doing this and why. But like some of them are just like, they think they're like score neighbors. They're like people who wanted the house. Mm-hmm. And didn't get it or something. And I'm like, dude,
There's different ways to go about that, though. Like, hey, I wish we could have gotten that house. We'll maybe make, I don't know,
you could
buy
like
the house.
spook them in so many other ways besides threatening the lives of their children.
And
like
creepy
that is
letters.
fucking psychotic.
Yeah, that's very weird. It'll help me plan better. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I hate it. I really do.
But I also don't want to go in any basement of any house now, so thanks.
Yeah, I'm like... it's creepy because you're like, well, how are you going to get in the basement? Like, are there tunnels? And I think that's something that they put in the TV show is that there's tunnels or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's very dramatized, but...
Did you ever see that movie, that scary movie? I think it's called, like, Mother or something. And it's literally about, like, incest. And they're living underneath this house.
Yes, dude.
And they, like, come up during the night when this dumbass rented it out and has never been to the house.
Should we do like a scary movie segment where we just talk about like the plots of scary movies?
Yeah.
Instead of watching the scary movie, me and Emily just tell you about it.
A good summarize so you can decide if you want to watch it or not. Mm-hmm. That was a good movie.
Yeah, I've definitely seen it. It was spooky.
I like scary movies. I just don't like the gory, like gross.
Yeah, that's what
movies.
like I close my eyes.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, ooh.
I do like I love watching scary movies like in the fall, like during Halloween time. Like last year, me and Tyler just watched scary every night for
scary
like
movie binge.
45 days, dude. I'm not even joking. I saw so many. There was a lot of like classic ones I hadn't seen, but all right, back to the story. Immediately after receiving the second letter, Derek and Maria stopped bringing the children to the house, but this did not stop the watcher from writing another letter. This letter just read, quote, "Where have you gone to? 657 Boulevard is missing you." End quote. Scurry.
They're so creepy. They're just like
Yeah, it's just like they're so mysterious that it'd almost be less creepy if it was like a serial killer writing them. You're like, at least you know who. It's just like, what's creepy is that you're like, it could be anybody. Like you're looking at every neighbor you meet. You're like, is it you? Is it you? Now, when the Broadduses bought the home, they had beat out multiple offers, which led them to wonder if the watcher was someone who had lost out on the home. So they reached out to the Woodses to see if they could get any information about these big fat losers. And the Woodses thought that it was unlikely. Apparently, one potential buyer backed out after being diagnosed with a serious medical condition, and another backed out because they made an offer on a different home around the same time, and that offer was accepted first. So it wasn't really like someone was really dying to get this home, and then the Broadduses like sweeped it out from under them or anything like that.
They all kind of just bowed out naturally.
Yeah, exactly. And on top of this, Andrea questioned, wouldn't the mention of the contractor trucks and the children suggest that it was like one of the neighbors writing the letters? Like it was someone who could watch the house constantly and like knew what was going on. It wasn't someone who lived 20 minutes away and they wanted to buy the house but couldn't or something like that. So I kind of feel like that's a solid point. So with further investigation, it was discovered that the very first letter, the one sent to the Woodses before the Broadduses even moved in, this letter was actually postmarked on June 4th, which was before the sale was made public. So, like, the sold sign was not in the front yard. There was no public record at all that the Broadduses had bought this home. Mm-hmm. In fact, the Woodses had never even put up any for sale sign, meaning, like, they just sold it, like, privately. So this meant that someone had to be observing the home very closely to know that the Woodses had sold the home and moved out, and a new family would be moving in.
That's creepy.
So
I wonder
someone
if they
is
did that for a
watching
reason.
the house. Like, these aren't just like, someone couldn't get the
Like
house.
they
And
got
they're
this
like,
off
let's
of
try and
public
get these
information.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not just like, let's try and get these people to move out. It's like they are actually doing what they're saying in the letter. They are watching the house. Now, even further, when Derek and Maria took Detective Lugo around the house, he saw that the easel that was mentioned in the second letter, like when he said, I saw the child painting on the porch, it was on an enclosed porch that was almost completely hidden from the street by vegetation, making it extremely difficult to see unless you were standing like directly behind the house or directly next door. So like if you're just standing on the sidewalk, you couldn't see this.
Yeah.
So it's like someone was either like the house next door or one of the houses behind, or just like fucking standing in their yard watching this.
That's so creepy.
Terrifying.
Ooh.
Now, only a few days after receiving their first letter, the entire Broaddus family had attended a neighbor's barbecue that was intended to welcome them to the neighborhood, and another new family who was also new to the neighborhood. And Derek and Maria during this barbecue were basically just on high alert, observing every attendee as a possible suspect. It was at this barbecue that Derek started chatting with John Schmidt, a neighbor from 2 doors down, and they're basically just talking about all the different people in the neighborhood. And Derek found what John had to say about one family in particular, the Langfords, very, very interesting. So the Langfords lived next door to 657 Boulevard, between the Broadduses and the Schmidts. So Broadduses, Langfords, Schmidts. And Peggy Langford, who was in her 90s, was like the matriarch of the household. And several of her adult children, who were in their 60s at the time, lived there with her. Schmidt described them as, quote, a bit odd but harmless, end quote. In particular, he described one of the younger sons, Michael Langford, as, quote, kind of a Boo Radley character, end quote. Derek was especially interested in the Langfords, as they also lived on the side of the house that had that you could see the enclosed porch from, meaning Michael Langford had a straight shot view from their windows. Not to mention, Peggy's husband, Richard, who had also lived in the house, had died 12 years earlier. So they're wondering, could Richard be the father who had watched the house before the current watcher? Like, it made sense. Like, multiple generations had lived in this home. Mm-hmm. Derek and Maria called Detective Lugo to ask him to look into Langford, only to find out that Lugo had actually brought Langford in for an interview only a few days after the first letter was received. Langford denied being the watcher or knowing anything about the letter, but Lugo told the Broadduses that the narrative Michael spun during the interview seemed to match some of the points made in the letters. So,
That's fishy. Even
though he's saying, I don't know what you're talking about, he would like say certain things. I can't find what these things were, but Lugo's saying like, okay, let's, for example, this is just conjecture. I don't know this, but it could have been like, oh, he's saying whoever bought that house is greedy or something like that. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, though, there wasn't any hard evidence to connect Langford to the letters. So Lugo explained that there wasn't much the police could do at this point. Now, Derek did not take this lightly. He felt that his family was being threatened, and this is not something he was going to stand for. So,
Good for him.
Good.
I wouldn't either.
Good.
I'd be like, nope. It's not good enough.
he's pissed off, and he and Maria just started their own investigation. He's like, all right, police aren't going to do anything. I need to take care of this myself. And so he and Maria kind of just start investigating on their own, like hoping to gather some evidence against Langford. He's convinced this is the guy. So Derek set up some cameras, like not really some cameras. They're kind of all over the house, like inside, outside, everything. And he would spend nights sitting downstairs with all of the lights off, looking out the windows, trying to see if he could spot someone like outside watching the house or in the yard or anything. He even created maps of the neighborhood, marking which homes had sight lines to the enclosed porch and which were in earshot where someone may have heard them yelling the kids' names. This definitely decreased their suspect pool, as only a few houses fit both of these categories. Still, Derek remained focused on the Langfords because, of course, their house fit these categories. Mm-hmm. In addition to his own investigative work, Derek also hired 2 former FBI agents. One was the FBI agent that inspired the character Clarice in The Silence of the Lambs, whom Derek knew from his work on a high school board of trustees. Kind of crazy.
That's wild.
Very cool. Very cool. Good FBI agent to get. I mean, she did some cool shit, apparently. Now, the second agent was Robert Lenahan, who was hired to conduct a threat assessment. Basically, they want to know how much, how
credible
are
is
these
this?
threats?
Yeah.
So Lenahan thought that the writing style of the Watcher felt literary, suggesting the writer was likely an avid reader. He also noted that even though the letters expressed an immense amount of anger, it lacked profanity, which led him to believe that they were written by a, quote, less macho writer. Whatever that means.
So a more sophisticated person, or just a less macho writer?
Just a less macho writer. Whenever someone comments that I swear too much, I'm just going to say, it's because I'm macho as fuck, dude. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
Macho girl.
Macho girl. What, is that a thing? Or?
Yeah, macho man. Macho man.
What is that from?
Macho man. Macho, it's like a TV show or something.
Macho girl. I like it. Okay. So it was Lenahan's opinion that the Watcher was unlikely to actually follow through on any of the threats that he made in the letters, but noted that there were just enough typos and errors in the letters to indicate a mildly concerning level of erraticism. To him, the letters showed a rage just towards the rich in general. In one of the letters, the Watcher wrote the following, quote, "The house is crying from all of the pain it is going through. You have changed it and made it so fancy. You are stealing its history. It cries for the past and what used to be in the time when I roamed its halls. The 1960s were a good time for 657 Boulevard when I ran from room to room, imagining the life with the rich occupants there. The house was full of life and young blood. Then it got old, and so did my father. But he kept watching until the day he died, and now I watch and wait for the day when the young blood will be mine again." End quote. So
that's confusing because it kind of seems like he lived in the house in the 60s.
Yeah.
But then it also seems like he just played there. Like he didn't actually live there, because it was saying like, oh, my dad watched the house. But like, if you live there, why would you need to watch it?
Yeah. Like, I feel like, to me, it makes sense that it would be the next door neighbors. It's like, okay, if there's kids, if you're a kid growing up in that house, you live next door. You go play with the kids that are living next door. Mm-hmm. And
then he falls in love with the house. Like, oh, this was such a cool house. And now he's like, oh, I'm never going to be able to afford that house. And
well,
now
that's
he's mad.
what I was trying to look up, like, if the Langford's house was like way smaller or way less nice or whatever. And I do know, like, obviously it was like Peggy Langford in her 90s and like all of her adult children living there. It
probably
definitely wasn't
a
like
lot smaller.
Updated, nice. It was it was somewhat smaller. Obviously, it's on this it's on the boulevard. Everyone wants to live on the boulevard, so it's somewhat nice. But I don't think it was like as well kept or as large or whatever. But I couldn't like find any like pictures or actual information like comparing the two houses.
Well, this house also was like one of the nicest on the street too. Like it was, if not the nicest house on the street.
Yeah, exactly. So in my opinion, it kind of sounds like the Watchers somewhat older and probably like grew up at least in the area and has been inside the house and thinks like this is one of the nicest houses in town. Mm-hmm. And it shows that he obviously values the town and its history and is like upset by change. But I don't know. I really think it's looking like the Langfords to me.
Me too.
Allegedly. Now, the whole situation around 657 Boulevard was having a huge impact on the Broadduses' life. They had already sold their old house at this point. So when the time came for them to move out of that house and move in to the new house, they didn't want to do it. So they had to move.
That sucks.
They had to move in with Maria's parents. And because they couldn't tell anyone except the family and close friends about the letters, there was a lot of speculation as to why they weren't moving into the new house. They would tell people that it was because of quote-unquote legal issues, which many people assumed meant divorce. So, like, all these rumors were spreading around town that, oh, they bought the nicest house on the block, and they're not even going to move in because they're going to get divorced and blah, blah, blah.
That sucks so hard because, like, I mean, I have never bought a house, but I am excited to buy a house, and I can't imagine just finally getting this amazing dream house, and then you have all this stupid shit come up where you're not even comfortable moving in, and you can't even stay in your other house where you're comfortable, so you have to move in with your parents. Like, that sucks. That sucks.
And I'm gonna tell you what I always tell you. It just gets worse. Always. It's always getting worse. So while divorce wasn't on the docket for the Broadduses at that point, actually, I don't think they ever got divorced. I don't know why I wrote at that point, but they were definitely fighting a lot more than usual. They were both very frustrated and they were depressed. They had all their money tied up into this house. They're being like basically tortured and threatened by this guy. And Maria recalled that she even once like burst into tears after being asked by a doctor, "How are you?" Like he just came in the room and he's like, "Hi, like how are you?" And
that's
she
how
just
you know it's
crying.
fucking bad. I've been there.
Yeah, me too.
It sucks. You're just like on the edge, and you're like, that question just sends you.
I think I did that last week.
Just sends you.
I'm just kidding.
I did. I've had a full mental breakdown when I got back from my work trip because I was so exhausted.
Oh,
literally on my ride home, I was just in tears. I was like, I'm so tired.
Did you get to relax this week, or are you still mental breakdown?
I feel a little better.
Good.
I haven't cried yet, so
okay.
This week.
I hope me forcing you to do 2 episodes isn't going to be like the straw that broke the camel's back today.
The full send it over. No,
yeah. Okay.
No, I feel okay today.
Okay. Good.
I promise. If I go home and cry, I'll let you know.
Okay. That'll make all the Kelseys feel really good. Okay. Anyway. So, sorry. 6 months after the letters began, the family decided to sell the property. Unfortunately, the once highly sought-after house had already become annihilated by all of the rumors flying around town. Some rightly speculated that the Broadduses were selling because of a stalker, but some were like, there were some inflated rumors saying that there was a sexual predator focused on the house and the children. So no one wanted to buy it. Now, the Broadduses told the realty company that listed the house, which was Coldwell Banker, all about the letters, and they asked that if they were to find a buyer, that the letters would be disclosed to any prospective buyers before they finalized the purchase, because they were pissed that the Woods didn't tell them about that first letter.
As would I be.
And yeah, they didn't want to do that to another family. So Coldwell Banker like pushed back on this, saying that the family was being too forthcoming and it was going to drive down the value of the house and all of that. And Derek responded,
well, yeah,
quote,
no shit.
Yeah. And what Derek said to this was, quote, "I don't know how you lived through what we did and think that you could do it to somebody else," end quote. Which just makes me
mad
sad.
respect.
And one of the things that you don't like necessarily think about always when you hear these stories, like when people are being victimized, or let's say something happened to their family, or they have a loved one missing, or anything like this, is like they still have to carry on. They still have to go to work every day and like take care of their kids and like live everyday life and deal with all of this on top of it. Like, it's got to be horrible.
I feel like I would just be living in fear the entire time, and you can't. Your house is supposed to be your safe place, safe place, and you can't go to your house.
100%. So a year after buying the house, they were still unable to sell it without taking a major financial loss. In June of 2015, the Broadduses filed a legal complaint against the Woodses for not disclosing the letter they had received. They hoped to settle it quietly to avoid media attention, as they had not even told their children about the Watcher yet. But of course, once the media caught wind of the story, which they don't really know how they did, but once they got wind of it, the Broadduses were bombarded with local news stories and interview requests. In addition to the disturbance of the lives of the Broaddus family, the news stories affected the community as well. People were on edge, especially those living on the boulevard or in that neighborhood. And actually, so my great aunt and uncle, when this happened, lived like only a few blocks away. And I asked them, well, when my dad went to, they live in Utah now, and my dad went to go visit them. And I told him, I'm like, you got to ask them about this. And they said they remembered reading the news stories like after the fact, but don't remember it happening. I'm like, that's the worst answer. I wanted you to tell me some crazy shit.
I needed the tea.
I wanted them to be like, oh my God, yeah, we knew the guy next door. He was a weirdo, like, or something like that.
Yeah.
But yep, they had nothing to say about it. So
Weird.
now, to quell public fears, Mayor Andy Skibitsky.
That's a name.
Yep. Skibitsky. I like it.
Yeah, me too.
Andy
It's
Skibitsky.
fun.
I wish his first name was better than Andy. Sorry, but all right. Mayor Skibitsky made a statement basically saying that there was nothing to worry about. The Watcher hadn't been heard from in almost a full year, and the police did their due diligence on the investigation, exhausting every lead. However, the neighbors of 657 Boulevard were very confused when they heard this statement, as many of them had never been talked to by police at all and were now worried for their own families. So, like, the police are coming out and they're like, we did everything. We exhausted every lead. And, like, people who live 2 doors down are like, literally no one's asked me any questions about this or, like, talked to us or told us this was going on until it was in the media. Like,
I would be so pissed.
like, they might have had relevant, helpful information and no one talked to them.
Maybe, like if they actually fucking asked.
Yeah. But of course, they never do.
Fucking lazy ass people.
When veteran detective Baron Chambliss caught wind of the story, he was shocked by the lack of support the Broadduses received by not only the community, but also the police force. So he decided to begin investigating himself.
Hey, Chambliss. Let's go.
Let go. He spoke with Michael Langford's brother, Sandy, who informed him that Michael had been diagnosed with schizophrenia in his youth and had done some odd things to spook new neighbors in the past, like walking through their yards and peeking in their windows.
That is my first fucking culprit right there.
Yeah.
Like, the biggest red flag.
Yeah. Now, John Schmidt said that Michael would go out and get the newspaper at the end of the Schmidt's driveway for him every morning. So this is the Langford's next door neighbor on the other side. It's Schmidt's, Langford's, Broadduses. He said that every morning Michael would go get his newspaper from his driveway and take it up to his front door and be like, here's your newspaper. A little weird.
Thank you, sir, but I can get it myself. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah. But you're like,
Maybe
it's
he
one
just
of those
needs a
things
hobby.
where you probably
Maybe he just needed something to do, and you're like, all right, I'll let him
you
do
just
that.
think it's harmless, and yeah. Now, while we're all thinking, wow, it's obviously Michael Langford, it's important to note that many people who had known Michael for decades said that they didn't think Michael was mentally capable of writing these letters. I don't know exactly what this means. They don't really elaborate on this, but I'm assuming it means that the writing seemed too complex to be his writing.
Yeah.
Plus, Chambliss discovered that investigators had conducted tests on a DNA sample found on the envelope of one of the letters, and the DNA was found to be female, like where you lick the envelope. Mm-hmm. So it's female DNA. Chambliss immediately started looking at Michael's sister, Abby Langford, but after testing her DNA from a water bottle that she had drank from, it wasn't a match. They even tested the DNA against a sample from Andrea Woods. But again, that was not a match either. I don't know why they thought it would be the Woodses, but
Interesting. What about the mom? Did they test the mom?
I don't think so. But also, if they tested it against the sister, I think they would have shown that it was like a familial DNA match.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't know. But also, it's like,
I'd be testing everybody.
I have questions. Like,
I'd be testing
do
every
you know
woman
that
on
it was,
that
like,
street.
Can you tell that the DNA was from saliva, or like, what if it was Maria Broaddus's DNA from opening the letter, like touch DNA or something? Like, I don't know. Or maybe you can tell it's from saliva, but I'm like, to me, we don't got enough information.
Nah, I got questions.
At this point, the entire investigation was at a standstill. Out of what I suspect to be pure desperation, Chambliss decided to stake out the property one night. At one point in the night, around 11 p.m., a car stopped in front of the property for a suspicious amount of time. Chambliss noted down the license plate and tracked down the girl who owned it. This girl lived in a nearby town, but her boyfriend lived on the same block as the house. When Chambliss brought the girl in for an interview to ask questions about the boyfriend, she admitted that the boyfriend was very deep into some dark video games, in one of which his character was called the Watcher. Now, I could not find what video game this is, like what video game he was playing, or I couldn't find a character called the Watcher. I don't know. But I did some online research, like trying to figure it out. I did find one game called Darksiders that has a character called the Watcher. And the fact that they described the game as dark, I don't know. Now, according to the Darksiders page on fandom.com, quote, "The Watcher is the war's guide in Darksiders. After the Charred Council accused War of destroying humanity, the Watcher was bonded to the Horseman during his journey to kill the Destroyer in order to keep him on a leash," end quote. But the point is, it doesn't seem relevant to why you would use that character. And I don't even know that that's the game he was playing. So I don't know. Take that for a grain of salt because, again, we have no idea. Now, Chambliss requested that the boy come in for an interview on 2 separate occasions. Both times, the boy agreed but never showed up. With no evidence against him, Chambliss had no choice but to drop the whole thing. Now, another theory is that the Broadduses sent the letters to themselves. There are many reasons for why people are speculating this. One of them being that maybe they purchased the house and they were in over their heads with the cost of the home. They'd upgraded to the $1.4 million home from a $770,000 house. Maybe they were concocting some sort of insurance fraud scheme. Some people even speculated that they were after a movie deal. However, Maria's DNA, I forgot about this. Maria's DNA was tested against the DNA on the envelope, and it was not a match.
Okay.
But again, I'm not convinced about this whole envelope
again,
DNA.
what kind of DNA?
Yeah, like it doesn't. It seems to me to be implied that it's from licking the envelope, but I'm like, but what if someone touched that part? Like, what if it was in a factory? What if someone sweat on it, like in the factory? Like, I don't know.
I would hope that they would test every part of the envelope and like they're testing for saliva DNA probably.
I don't know. I don't know how that works, to be honest with you. And I couldn't find any like information about it. It was just like DNA. Now, naturally, these accusations just worsen the already nightmarish reality that the Broadduses found themselves living in. They had become outcasts, tortured by a stalker, and then accused and shunned by their community. And honestly, to me, this theory doesn't make any sense because they're saying, they were in over their heads and that's why they did this. It was too much. It was more expensive than they thought. It's like, then why wouldn't they just sell the fucking house? By doing all these letters just made it impossible for them to sell this house without taking a huge financial hit. That makes no sense.
I don't think that makes any sense either. I don't think that they would do that to themselves.
Exactly. And so Derek at this point is just, I mean, I can't imagine how frustrated he is. And he just wants to move away from Westfield and get away from like the rumors and the scrutiny.
And the weird ass neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. But this was Maria's hometown and she was committed to staying and raising her children there. And 2 years after the letters began, Derek and Maria purchased another home in Westfield using money they had to borrow from Maria's family. Still, they had to figure out what to do with 657 Boulevard. They tried putting the house back on the market, hoping it would sell now that the media attention had finally died down a bit. The first open house was a good turnout, but every single person who expressed interest backed out once they read the letters, which, fair enough.
Yeah.
Eventually, the family's real estate attorney proposed that they find a real estate developer to sell the house to. The developer could split the property in half and build 2 new homes. The lot itself was very large, and they suspected that they could get about $1 million for it. Unfortunately, the Westfield Planning Board required that all lots in the neighborhood be at least 70 feet wide. And if they were to split the lot in half, the 2 remaining lots would be about 2.5 feet short of this regulation at 67.5 feet wide each. And so, the Broadduses filed a proposal for the board to make an exception to this rule.
For 3 feet?
2.5 feet.
2.5 feet? That's fucking wild.
Yep.
That 2.5 feet really is going to do something.
Well, they thought surely people would want to help them out. You know, this poor family is going through this nightmare, and it's been going on for over 2 years at this point, and everyone knows about it. And they're thinking, we just need to, they'll grant us an exception. We just have to explain what's going on. However, when the public caught wind of this proposal, they pretty much fucking lost it. More than 100 people from the area showed up to the planning board meeting in January 2017 to oppose the proposal.
I mean, I see where they're coming from, though, because it is a nice, like, old house, and, like, for someone to just come in and take it down.
Then one of you bitches buy it. Dude, if I was the Broad,
yeah,
I would get up.
saying.
I would get up on the mic. I'd be like, excuse me, if everyone could quiet down. Hey, 100 of you coming here to oppose this. Thank you so much for joining us. I just wanted to ask if you guys could be so fucking for real right now. Could you be so fucking for real right now? You're gonna oppose this? Who wants to buy the house from us? Crickets? No one? No one?
They're like, no, we don't actually want to buy the house. We're just like driving by it and looking at it.
Oh, you're just like driving by it? Oh, that's fantastic. Like, could you be so fucking... I would actually, I would do probably exactly what the Broadduses end up doing. So, where was it? So one of these people that showed up to oppose the proposal was actually the neighbor from across the street. And this guy even showed up with an attorney that he had retained to help fight the proposal.
Damn.
So, like...
That's a lot. That's a lot of lengths to go through.
Seems like he cares a lot about this house that he can see from across the street.
Sir, can I ask you a couple questions?
Well, that makes me wonder, are you the watcher, sir?
Why would he bring his attorney, though? That's weird.
Because he's like, I'm too dumb to fight this proposal. I got to get my attorney to do it. I don't know. But the Broadduses' attorney, James Forrest, presented a compelling case for making an exception. First, he explained that they were only asking for 2.5 feet. 2.5 feet less, which was even smaller than the 3-foot wide displayed board that he was using to present the proposal on. Secondly, he pulled up a map of the neighborhood marking several plots that were also too small. Why would one more hurt? So there were other lots in this neighborhood on the boulevard that were less than 70 feet.
Dude, what? How did they get their fucking approval?
Because they made an exception. Like the board made an exception. Now,
that's wild.
Still, despite this, the neighbors argued against it. And Glenn Dumont, who was the dummy from across the street, said that if the board approved the proposal, they would, quote, spell the end of the 600 block of the boulevard as we know it, end quote. Be so fucking for real with me right now, Glenn.
Like it's not already the end with this creepy ass fucking letters coming in the mail to this house.
Them splitting up the lot that you don't even want to buy or can't afford to buy.
They're giving cult vibes, and to me it seems like they all decided to write these stupid ass letters collectively.
That's what I don't know.
It's giving me that vibe, because like, why do you care so much?
That's why I agree. I think it's fucking weird, and I think Glenn needs to shut the fuck up. And I say that disrespectfully. Bye. Now, after 4 hours on the topic, the proposal was unanimously rejected. Maria told a reporter from The Cut, quote, "This is my town. I grew up here. I came back. I chose to raise my kids here. You know what we've been through. You had the ability 2.5 years into a nightmare to make it a little better. And you have decided that this house is more important than we are. That's really how it felt." End quote.
I don't blame her. Seems that way.
Fuck these people.
Yeah.
So soon after the board's devastating decision, a spark of hope flashed for Derek and Maria. A family wanted to rent the house from them as long as they put a clause in the lease that the lease would be broken if another letter arrived. The Broadduses were elated, but only 2 weeks after the family moved into the house, another letter came.
Of course.
This letter read, quote, "Violent winds and bitter cold. To the vile and spiteful Derek and his wench of a wife, Maria. You wonder who the watcher is? Turn around, idiots. Maybe you even spoke to me, one of the so-called neighbors who has no idea who the watcher could be. Or maybe you do know but are too scared to tell anyone. Good move. I walked by the news trucks when they took over my neighborhood and mocked me. I watched as you watched from the dark house in an attempt to find me. Telescopes and binoculars are wonderful inventions. 657 Boulevard survived your attempted assault and stood strong with its armies of supporters barricading its gates. My soldiers of the boulevard followed my orders to a T. They carried out their mission and saved the soul of 657 Boulevard with my order. All hail the Watcher." Pause quote. At this point, the renter was mentioned by name, and the Watcher began listing all of the ways that he could get his revenge on the Broadduses.
Damn.
Saying, quote, "Maybe a car accident, maybe a fire, maybe something as simple as a mild illness that never seems to go away but makes you fall sick day after day after day after day after day."
That is so terrifying. How is that not? I don't know. If the police need to get fucking involved in that's a threat, dude. That's multiple threats.
Saying.
That's
And
like, maybe I'll do this to you. Maybe I'll do this. And then maybe you won't even know it's me. And then no, that's fucked up.
Wait. It gets more fucked up because he continues. He says, "Maybe the mysterious death of a pet. Loved ones suddenly die. Planes and cars and bicycles crash. Bones break. You are despised by the house and the Watcher won." End quote.
No.
I like that he goes from, "You're going to get a mild illness that never goes away," like as if they're just like God, like pulling the strings, like, "Yeah, and you're going to have a cough for a long time, bitch."
You're going to have a never-ending
and then
cough.
Planes crash and I like that they go planes and cars and bicycles crash. Like,
Your bones break.
so the renter gets this letter and they're definitely a little creeped out by the letter, but they agreed to keep the lease if the cameras were installed again. Unlike the Broadduses, the renters didn't have any young children, which probably made the letters feel a little bit less threatening than it felt for the Broadduses.
Mm-hmm.
And a while after this fourth letter was received, some of the major opposers of the Broadduses' proposal to the planning board began to receive mysterious typed letters as well. They were said to be oddly poetic, just like the Watcher letters, and they accused the recipients of spreading lies and incorrectly speculating about the Broaddus family. Of course, these recipients took to Facebook to accuse the Broadduses of sending these letters. And this time, they were right. Derek later admitted to writing the letters to the neighbors, though he says Maria didn't know anything about them and stands by the fact that he had nothing to do with the letters that his family received or their renters received. When asked by Reeves Wiedemann from The Cut what lasting effect the Watcher had on his and his family's lives, Derek replied, quote, "It's like cancer. We think about it every day." End quote.
Damn. What a dumb move to make, though. Because, first of all, you're just going to piss off the Watcher by making those letters. Like, what a guy thing to do.
Like, why do you, like, I wouldn't even care. I would be trying to piss them off. Yeah, that's the end of the story. That's where it ends. Is Derek, they never found out who did it. And Derek did write the letters to the neighbors trying to, like, saying you're spreading lies and blah. And honestly, it wasn't the best move. He shouldn't have done it. I probably would have done the same fucking thing. I would have egged their houses, first of all.
Yeah. I would have, yeah. Yeah.
But I probably would have done the same thing.
I have a lot of things I would have done, and
now so the article that I mentioned where Derek gave this quote where he said it's like cancer, we think about it every day. It is from The Cut. It was written by Reeves Wiedemann, and this was like one of the main sources that I used for this because it's just so beautifully written. I used a handful of sources. You're going to be able to find them on the website when I got to get on that. Honestly, haven't worked on it in a minute. I'll get on that. But Wiedemann's article on The Cut's website is like fantastic. I highly recommend reading it. That's where a lot of these like direct quotes came from. And of course, he is a trained and skilled writer, unlike me. I'm a conversationalist, aka I don't know how to shut the fuck up, but he is a great storyteller, so I recommend it. It's called The Watcher. A family bought their dream house, but according to the creepy letters they started to get, they weren't the only ones interested in it. End quote. It is a long title, but my boy Reeves kills it, so check it out.
who do you think did it? Who do you think the Watcher is?
Allegedly, the fucking neighbor. Allegedly, duh. Allegedly.
Personally, I think it's multiple neighbors. And now I take back what I said about him making a dumb move and sending in the letters to the neighbors. I applaud him for that now because I honestly do think it was the neighbors. And I think that they're just in one big cult and they don't want new people entering their neighborhood. So they got to scare them away or add a little fear into their eyes. And like, no, you can't. That's
It's
the
just
best.
crazy,
That's
like,
the best house on our street. We can't afford it.
If they love that house, why would they want it to just be vacant though? Like no one's gonna take care of it if it's just vacant. Like you would want people to like live in it and like keep it I don't know, just take care of it.
Yeah, like why are you trying to scare them away?
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, thanks for listening. The Kelseys are very happy. Yeah, the Kelseys love when people listen. They just don't like editing. Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about.
That concludes our double whammy for today.
Fucking double whammy. But hey, we are only 2 hours in, and like I said, that's what we did last week. So boom, boom,
I applaud us.
So Kelsey's very long-winded, but Kelsey did her best to make Emily happy and keep it as short as possible. So anyway, thank you for listening. Give us 5 stars. Give us your firstborn children, and follow us at A Trial by Podcast.
Just no creepy letters, please.
Yeah, just don't give us creepy letters. And court is adjourned.
And bye.